The following is a GoPowercat.com production.
Well, last week we talked about Kansas State's struggles in the transfer portal for basketball. This week we have some good news to bring you, if you don't already know. They've added Max Jones, a big guard out of Cal State Fullerton. What's this mean for the team? Where are they headed next? And maybe some other topics of your choosing. Welcome to this week's edition of the K-State Insiders.
Welcome to the K-State Insiders, your Kansas State sports show, presented by Synergy Financial Partners. Now let's go to the rolling Flint Hills, home of the Cats and Dogs studio. Here's your host, Tim Fitzgerald.
The whole gang is here today. Gilbert, I added you last, and yet there you are in the wrong spot.
Glenn, get out of my spot.
I'm trying to get centered here.
Okay, hold on.
I'm really struggling.
I'm gonna remove you for a second and remove you for a second. Now add you.
Hey, let's go.
Now add Gilbert. Watch, he'll go where Glenn is. No.
Oh.
Yeah. StreamYard wants you in the bottom.
That's just the way it's going to be today, I guess.
Sounded worse than I thought it would. Hi, fellas. How's your Monday? Are you inside? It's raining here, Big B. A lot.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Just one of those persistent rains that kind of pisses you off. It's
right.
not really a thunderstorm. It's just not going to stop.
Yeah, we had basically a thunderstorm for about a day and a half yesterday. So today it's finally, it's nice out. But yeah, for basically half the day Saturday and all day yesterday, just torrential downpour. It was crazy.
Yeah. Yep. Well, that does it for the sports. Now let's head off to the weather. Hold on, I did it backwards. Weather, sports, whatever. Guys, let's put Mr. Gilbert on the hot seat. And by the way, welcome to the Insiders. Make sure you drop some questions over there in the chat. We might have need for more topics than my brain will come up with on my own. It's a sad reality. And also make sure you're following this channel. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoy this video. And always give us your thoughts on some things you'd like to see different or things you like the best about the show so we don't change those things. And let's get going. Max Jones is in the house for Kansas State, Cal State Fullerton, 6'4" guard, 1 season to go, and is fairly athletic. Mr. Gilbert shoots it okay, pretty well from three-point range, but give us your thoughts on Max Jones.
Absolutely. I think athletic is a great word to describe him. He's versatile. He fits the type of player that this staff has continuously gone after. And so, you mentioned he can shoot the ball. He can get downhill and score. He's a bigger guard, and so he can do a lot of things. So that certainly had to have been something that was attractive for Jerome Tang and his staff when they were looking at him. You mentioned it, though, from Cal State Fullerton, one season of eligibility left, and so that's an experienced guy that K-State's bringing onto its roster. There's some weaknesses there. You can't get around those. I mean, the turnovers are high. He also played on a team that won, I think, 14 games in the Big West, I believe, is where they played. And so, there's room for improvement, obviously, but nonetheless, a good pickup for this staff and another Jones that they love going after, right? They love the last name Jones. And so I'm excited for this one. And he'll do a lot of different things, I think, in this system, as most of Jerome Tang's players do.
In some ways, he reminds me of Cam Carter. However, he shoots the ball better. He seems more advanced in taking the ball to the hole, which might be a function of his age. But he also turns it over, Mr. Gilbert, and that's a problem. You know how I feel about that.
Comparison. Yep.
K-State's never had turnover problems, though, so that'll get fixed in a hurry.
No.
Wally put the comparison out for Justin Edwards, and I really like that one. Just super athletic, has some nice bounce. And so Justin Edwards Cam Carter, I see that too, Fitz, with the athleticism and all that. But Cam Carter was maybe a little bit raw, and just the way even if he wasn't raw, he kind of looked raw, maybe unorthodox with the way he played. I think Jones is a little more smooth with his game, and that's not a knock on Carter, but as long as you can get the ball through the net, doesn't matter how it looks, right?
Yeah, I think Max Jones dropped 30 on Nebraska, or roughly somewhere around there, 20 to 30 points on Nebraska in Lincoln. I don't want to discuss when Nebraska came to town last season.
I was going to say, I think that's actually more than Kansas State scored.
Yes,
but,
it's about right.
Gills, I think an important note that I think I saw you tweeted was that he was pretty good against NCAA tournament teams, which when your first question, or at least my first question, when you get a guy from a school like that is, hey, that's great. Can he play at this level, right? You could get a guy from D2 that averaged 34 a game, but you're saying that's awesome. Can he play Power 5 basketball? And so the fact that Jones was pretty good against the better teams that they played on their schedule last year is encouraging to me.
For sure.
And your thoughts?
Well, for one thing, I would hope that the staff in general understands what they lost in Cam Carter and didn't go out and get the carbon copy of that. Because I got to believe that they did a better job. Yeah. Hey, okay, we got a guy that's super athletic, can score, but is turnover prone, that we just didn't go out and get the exact same thing, because otherwise, what's the point? So maybe they see something based on what their offense is going to be and how it runs, where he won't have as many turnover problems. I think the staff, like I said, it would be a colossal mistake if they did that. I just don't think they would have done that. I think they did their due diligence on how they want to use him and how he's going to be used, and that they understand, okay, great. Yeah, we got a guy. Yeah, he had some turnover problems there. One, it could be he had to do so much in that offense there to where he's not going to be counted on to have to do all of those things at Kansas State because he's playing with better players.
Yeah, I agree. As Ryan can attest, trying to do a full breakdown on these recruits from these smaller schools is very difficult. To do it properly, you've got to have full game video, and we didn't see much of that. The highlights show the highlights, so you don't see the flaws. I'm curious to think that maybe some of his turnovers was being the guy in a program that needed him to be the guy, and so they grew out of being forced. And that's the problem with that, is it can become a habit, and if that's what it is, then they're going to have to break that habit. You're not the only guy. Well, you might be right now. No, that's not true. I mean, Doug McDaniel is going to have some other dudes around him, and by the time they're wrapped up with this, they're going to have plenty of guys that can help him out. And so he'll kind of be a finger in the glove, not the whole glove.
Yeah, I think so. And
go ahead.
I think that probably you could make the case on both those things. You could say, well, he was the go-to guy, so that's why he was turning the ball over, because they were counting on him and he was expected to make every pass. You could probably also say he was scoring a lot because he was taking a bulk of the shots. I don't know. I didn't look at his shooting percentage or anything like that. I know he was pretty good from three. So I'm not saying that he was only scoring because he was taking so many shots. But when you have the ball in your hand a lot, you're going to score more and you're going to turn it over more. So I don't know that I expect him to average 15 at Kansas State, but I would also hope that if he averages 12 instead of 15, that the turnovers come down just as much, if not more.
Yeah, my thought on him is, I would suspect that most of his turnovers were kind of like Cam and trying to get to the hole and make something happen. They came out to cover him and he went around them. His shooting percentage from the field is far less impressive than his shooting percentage from three. We're talking about 37% from three. For reference, Cam was at 30 this past season, so that's pretty dramatic. And I think he was in the low 40s from the field, so that usually is much higher. I think that's also going to the hole, turning the ball over, getting your shot blocked, taking bad shots. And maybe he is truly more of a spot up guy. Give me the ball, I'll catch and shoot it from out here, as opposed to absolutely trying to make something happen. And if so, I hope K-State can just put him in that role.
Yeah.
Go to the hole when necessary, but
surrounding him with playmakers like Doug McDaniel and some of the other guys that they have and hopefully are going to get still should certainly help that, I think. And we did get a question in the chat though. Yep. I see it's Star. I don't know if it was a super question or something.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Any chance an open hoop scholarship? Any chance an open hoop scholarship is used on a high school kid? Anyone to offer at that level? Gills, you probably know better than me. At this point, it might have to be somebody who requests release from their letter of intent to wherever they're going.
Who would be?
Yeah, not to my knowledge. I don't have any knowledge of them going after any high school guys right now.
Yeah, let's just be honest. It's what is it, May 13th? If there's a guy out there that hasn't committed or doesn't have a scholarship at that point, that's not somebody that's going to play at Kansas State right away. So that's not somebody that can help us. I'm not saying guys don't fall through the cracks, but if they haven't been offered, I'm not saying everybody has to be committed, but if you haven't offered or there's somebody still out there, that's not somebody that's going to play at Kansas State.
About the only one I remember that was a late signee out of high school that turned out to be a player was DJ Johnson. I would take DJ Johnson. I mean, that's the kind of player they kind of need. He would have fit this system extremely well because he could run the floor. He could defend the big guys. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for a strong cat that can get up and down and run the opposing centers off the court. That's hard to find.
Yeah, not impossible because there's the chance that, the domino effect of the transfer portal of a big man transfers to this school and their starting freshman is like, hey, I'm not sitting behind that guy. I want to be one and done. And then a stud big man incoming freshman goes into the portal, but I'm not betting on it. And I don't think they fall from trees. And even if it comes available, how many other schools are going to be after said guy? So,
well, the problem with all that is the portal's closed for new entrants at this point. So they're kind of stuck with what's in there.
Yeah.
And also anyone that might decide I'm going to grad transfer, they brought in a stud and it's going to limit my play at this institution. I'll go to that institution because I don't know any better and I might have less time there. That's what typically kids do. They escape their predicament and often get into a worse one. We'll see. We'll see.
I'm curious because I think you guys would know better than me. How does that work with an incoming freshman? Because can they still request out of their national letter of intent? And then are they in the portal even though it's closed? Or are they technically – they're not in the portal. They're just an uncommitted high school kid at that point? Or is there a chance those kids – I'm not even talking about for Kansas State, just in general. Is there a chance those kids can still become available?
I was under the impression they have to go in the portal because they were committed, but, signed with the actual letter of intent that binds you.
You got to step on campus.
Yes, but they haven't been on campus.
Yeah,
so
they
maybe
haven't
you're
been
right.
on campus, so it doesn't count because just think of it this way. Just for an example, the kids that were supposed to go to Kentucky because John Calipari signed. Well, they didn't go in the transfer portal. They just opened up their recruitment again. So if you haven't stepped on campus yet and taken a class or anything like that, you don't have to go in the portal. If you see the guys when they write those letters, I'm opening up my recruitment again. That's what it means. It doesn't mean they have to go in the transfer portal.
Very good. Very good. And unfortunately, I think there's some coaches out there that are willing to go tamper with the player to get them to get out of their
No.
Not even tampering anymore because you can't get in trouble. So
nobody's enforcing anything.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like the highway patrol just decided to shut down operations in this area. So why go the speed limit?
Let me ask you a question, guys. Go ahead. Go ahead with that one.
I want to follow up on this. Worst case scenario, do you think David Gasson and Bay Fall play the 5 all season? Ryan Gilbert, they have at least one big coming in this week, and H.O.R. They like having 2 names on a team, Jones, and H.O.R. just accomplishes it with one guy. He's more of a true big. I mean, he's out of Sanford, not a post player, but a power player. And I can see him guarding the post in this system because he can get up and down, stretch the floor. He's a very good 3-point shooter and make life difficult. But this is another big week for the staff, isn't it, Mr. Gilbert?
I think K-State, it'll work out. You guys hearing me? I'm cutting out. It'll work out with these, with Bay Fall and Gasson. But obviously you look at K-State staff, they're going out and they're recruiting guys still. So that's your answer to the question. I think it would work out, but obviously they can do much better. And I think K-State staff, with the fact that they're going out and recruiting dudes, they want to do better. They want to get more guys at that position. And so that would be, they could sufficient enough to have Gasson and Fall, but Fall is a lot more for his potential and what he can blossom into over the next couple of years in Manhattan, not for what he's looking at in the immediate future.
I haven't seen much of him playing, but at his measurements, he strikes me as someone who is less power game able than Naquan Tomlin. I mean, he's a tall, skinny guy that runs. And he's got incredible upside. and he's going to just be a sophomore. I mean, this isn't
Yeah.
like the past when they're just getting experienced guys out of the portal that are one and done. I see them moving into a little more stability and then adding some pieces as seniors. And at this point, though, they'll probably not take what they can get, but that's probably less of a consideration right now as the bodies, the able bodies, the really good ones, move out of the portal and make commitments.
And I can tell you, Fitz, I saw the kid from Stanford. I think it's a core. Is that right?
Okay.
I'm not positive. That's what I said on TV during the tournament, but I totally could have botched it.
I think you're right.
But I saw him play against KU in Salt Lake City in the tournament this past year, and he's good. I mean, he held his own, and we know how talented that KU roster was. They didn't have McCullough, but he wouldn't have been, guarding McCullough anyway, and he's good. He had a couple of ridiculous dunks, so he's very athletic. He would be one of the most athletic guys on K-State's team, and that would be a big get. I'll go kind of the other route, though, on that question we had pulled up about does Bayfall and David Gasson work worst case scenario. I'm going to say no, but I'm not just saying – if you're saying worst case scenario, to me, you're saying they don't get anyone else, right? And then I'm saying, okay, those guys are playing your 4 and 5. What happens when one of them is in foul trouble? Who's coming in? And what happens when one of them is in foul trouble and the other guy's played 36 minutes and you got 4 minutes left and that guy is dead? Doug McDaniel, get on the block, post up, all right? CJ Jones, you're playing the 5, right? I don't know. So worst case scenario, only having those two and maybe Taj Manning available to play the 4 and 5 does not work. I think they're going to get supplementary pieces, if not some dudes. So to answer the question, they don't need, the number one kid in the portal at the big, but they need a couple guys who can at least be good enough to give them breathers. That's what they need. And
also, I think Buddy Rich can be the But they're not done, folks. They still got Gil's 4 openings, right?
Yep.
So they're still grinding. They plan on having a full complement. I think they'll go into the late summer, unless someone obviously jumps out at them, holding at least 1 scholarship, if not 2. Because again, by not bringing in a bunch of one and done guys, you don't have any scholarships for next year. Mm-hmm. And I think that's going to be an emphasis. But in this world, do you really need to worry about scholarships next year?
Yeah.
Guys will transfer.
Yeah.
No, it's kind of old school thinking, but this is a huge week for K-State basketball. We'll see what develops. Myself and Mr. Wallace, and Gilbert will be all over that at GoPowercat as best we can. Guys, this is very interesting though. And this is a lesson in the portal. It's like life. You have your misses. The obvious things don't work out. I thought they had at least one of those guys, Khalif Battle, pretty much in their pocket. And by no means, after watching the two, does Max Jones offset the loss of Khalif Battle. That was a high-level player.
Yeah.
And, let's put it this way. Jones didn't even have a bio in the 24/7 database because he was so under the radar. I think he started at Tampa and then went to Cal State Fullerton and just never got one built. And so now he's got one, but people know who Khalif Battle is, and there's some guys out there like that, but not many at this point. And so now they're trying to add good, solid pieces. You don't need to get the big names out of the portal to be successful. Keontae Johnson was a big name, but I don't think people were lining up for Desi Sills. They weren't lining up for David Gasson.
Yeah.
And guys like that turned out to be really good players for the program. So
yeah,
I don't have a problem with that. If they fit the system like those dudes did, they're going to thrive in Jerome Tang's system.
Yeah, look at a guy like Will McNair that they had last year. I'll be the first to admit that I wasn't, jumping up and down and, oh my gosh, when they got Will McNair, they're going to be so good now. But he ended up being really solid for them. And I think they've shown that they can get a guy who not a groundbreaking recruit that's going to break the internet when he announces his commitment, but a guy who's good enough, who's going to come in and work and who's going to do things the right way, and that they can make him useful.
Yeah, you're exactly right.
Well, let me ask this question. Is David Castillo, is he just not going to be a factor next year in what they're doing?
I think they'll bring him along slowly. The departure of Day means he's the backup point guard. I mean, I know that.
I
And
mean,
that might mean 10 minutes a game. I think he's going to play. He's going to be in that rotation.
right. I'm just
And-
trying to figure out, because a big a deal is it was made to be to get him.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys know where I'm probably going with this. At some point, doesn't he have to be a bigger factor immediately and not be the guy that plays 8 to 10 minutes a game if he's really that good? Because if he's that good, 8 to 10 minutes isn't enough. It's just not.
Yep.
So, is he gonna be the factor that we think? Now, I know I get the injury and all that, but if he's gonna be the factor, and he's the big get that a lot of people thought that he was. I mean, a lot of people wanted this kid. 8 to 10 minutes isn't enough time, is it? Or am I off base with this?
I agree with you. I think he will play more than that, but I would also say the fact that he was a big recruiting get, I don't think always translate to year one stud, doing everything for you. I look at Marco Jackson down the road with KU. He was a McDonald's All-American, and he wound up starting until about conference play and then losing his starting job. Now, he still played more than 10 minutes, but you could look at Bay Fall. I mean, he was a McDonald's All-American, very highly touted recruit, ended up playing very little. So I'm not going to freak out if he isn't playing a ton of his freshman year. Don't get me wrong. It'd be a benefit if he comes out and balls out, and it'd be a benefit if the kid's good, really good, but not too good, because we really don't want him to go to the NBA draft for 1 year.
Yeah, I don't
Well,
think
my thought is kind of going the other way with that. If he plays 8 minutes a game, he's not coming back.
Yeah,
that's my thought. And if he's really that good, I just think at some point it seems like K-State always is the team that's trying to develop these freshmen, even if they're 4-star guys and high-level guys, versus, hey, you know what? This guy's really good. Let's just put him out on the court and let him play. And I think at some point you got to do that.
Ryan, by my view of David Castillo at this point, he's a very mature player.
Sure.
He knows his game. He understands his game. He can create and shoot. I think he's going to, I don't know if he'll get the starts because this roster is going to be better. But I think he more than compensates for the loss of Day Ames. I really think Day's departure, for what people want to say about it, because I've been told again and again, he was kind of forced into it by his agent / handler in the family that is somehow convinced he's going to get $500,000 in NIL. And I think part of that departure, though, was the presence of David Castillo. He's a third point guard. And I think he was going to surpass Day in the rotation if he had stuck around. I just believe that he's a more true creating point guard. Day's very good. And I think Day would have been good. But Castillo, from what I've seen, is the real deal. Gills, the question for me becomes, can he physically hold up at this level? It's a huge jump.
It is a jump. And I think all this kind of intertwines when we're talking about Ames and Castillo. The frustrating part about last season was towards the end, Ames kind of was given the keys and to play more freely. And we saw Day Ames was awesome for the last month of the season. For the first, half of the year before conference play, we didn't see Day Ames do a whole lot. It didn't start until about halfway through conference play. And so with David Castillo, you just hope that he's given a chance, right? I think that back to the conversation we had about how much is he going to play, I think it's probably going to be somewhere in between Day Ames and RJ Jones from last year. They're not going to just tell him to go out and poop. He's a freshman. There's older guards on the roster. I get that. I do. But I think he's not just going to be handcuffed kind of the way Jones was, where he was just asked to be a sharpshooter. So I agree, Big B, what you're saying, man, 100%. I do. I'm with you that he needs to go out and play. They made a big deal out of getting David Castillo. Fans are pumped to get him. Let him go out and play. If he's sitting on the bench, riding the bench for the whole game, absolutely, Big B, I'm with you that's frustrating.
Yep.
And so you got to let him go out and play. Now, I know you've got, like I said, you've got older guards on your roster. And if Castillo has a turnover problem and the rest of the roster does not turn the ball over, then absolutely, sure, put him on the bench. But the problem last year was that, okay, Day Ames, RJ Jones, they might turn the ball over, sure, but everybody else was too. So I want to see as much of Castillo as we can. Even if he's struggling a little bit, that's going to be part of it. Iron sharpens iron. So I think that whatever the staff does, I'm sure is going to be fine. But I would love to. I'm sure you guys all agree. We'd love to see Castillo play. and play as a freshman. Because if he's not, he's probably going to be, that transfer portal, the grass in his eyes is maybe going to be greener. Now, I know it is different. And this is a long-winded answer for me, but Clint Stewart, his high school coach and his mentor, wore purple, diehard K-Staters. And so maybe that relationship, stems a little deeper. He was being recruited by Bruce Weber's staff long before Jerome Tang was even at Kansas State. So if the minutes aren't there for Castillo in year one, maybe he's more understanding and patient than others might be in that system. But by all means, regardless, I would still love to see him play in year one.
I agree. You're watching the K-State Insiders. We do this every Monday at 1. We turn it over to Big B Tuesday through Friday at 1 to do the Big 12 Insiders. If you're watching on Twitter, which I suspect a lot of you are, thank you very much. Make sure you head over to YouTube and subscribe to both of those channels, GoPowercat and the Big 12 Insiders. And as we head into this first break of the show, I want to pose a question, and I need your feedback in the YouTube chat. If K-State were to add a men's and women's sport, and I think you could only do it by adding 2 sports, and I don't think it'll happen, but let's get into that hypothetical. What would be your choices for new sports on the men's and women's side at K-State? So this is the K-State Insiders, and we'll be right back.
At Synergy Financial Partners, the mission is to change the way Americans plan for their financial future. Synergy doesn't just offer you a financial plan. At Synergy, the goal is to help you find your best financial future. Learn more at synergyfinancial.com.
Welcome back to the show. Let's head back to the studio.
Welcome back to the K-State Insiders. Fitz, Big B, Gills, and GQGK.
That's what they call me.
Wearing a green shirt.
And by that, I do mean you, and just now for the first time ever.
Yeah. Ooh, Ryan Gilbert's camera just went blurry. That's kind of fun. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so I posed this question before the long, extensive break that I'd like to know what sports folks would like to add at Kansas State if that was possible. Now, this grew out of a comment on a previous, I think it was one of my daily deliveries, but another video on this channel. And someone wanted to know why K-State doesn't play softball. And it was a fitting question at the time because the Big 12 softball tournament was going on, and the Big 12 has really good softball programs.
Yeah.
Now, granted, 2 of them are heading to the SEC, but I think we're picking up 3 out of the 4 newcomers have softball. And Colorado does not have softball or baseball. Even though the baseball would travel a long ways, it would be in the snow. And I'm curious to hear from you guys. I think K-State absolutely in a different environment should add softball. I don't like to talk about dropping sports, but they'd need to drop something. And in this case, I think it'd be women's tennis because of the scholarship count. You still got to stay in balance for Title IX and have equal opportunities. I think K-State should consider added wrestling on the men's side. But as I pointed out in my daily delivery, guys, no one is going to be adding sports in this current environment. In fact, this current environment might lead to the destruction of many of these sports that we enjoy, but don't across the board lead to great revenue enhancement. I'm sure there's some baseball and women's basketball programs showing a profit. You can talk to me about revenue. I want to see what the profit is. What are they doing to chip in? And quite often, all that revenue is offset by the expenses of operating the team. Nobody's going to do that right now because we don't know where college sports is headed. But whoever wants to take it first, if you could add 2 sports at K-State, 1 men's, 1 women's, what would it be?
I'll go first.
Okay.
I mean, I think you got to add softball, and I think
agree.
wrestling, men's wrestling. I'm not sure. I mean, take that back. I know why that they don't have them. But I'm always a person that says this, and people may hate me for this. I don't think you should have football being counted in the Title IX sector. I just think for me, that doesn't make sense since it's the sport that funds most of the other sports, if not all of them. You count all of those scholarships against them. I just don't think that's fair. Number one, I think you could get some more sports if you take that number out, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But for K-State, I think you add softball. Regardless, I know somebody in the comments said they wouldn't be any good. I don't think that's true because, I mean, you might take a lump immediately.
Oh, yeah.
But eventually, they're going to become better. It's the way it works. Any program starting out is not going to be good immediately. But sooner or later they get better. And I think the same thing with wrestling. So for me, I think it's those two sports. I'm not sure as far as revenue wise, what it would do, but we don't even have to talk about revenue wise. Let's just talk about what sports should be added. I think
what would be fun. Yeah. Hey, I'll add this a little, since we cover everything from NFL to high school sports, I can give you the insight on high school softball. The best pitcher in America right now in college softball is from Topeka, Kansas. Nyjah Kennedy went to Topeka High. She's now at Stanford, and she led the nation in ERA this year at Stanford. By the way, there's a girl from Wamego that's committed to pitch at Tennessee.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure she allowed 1 run last season as a sophomore, by the way. Okay. And I won't bore you with all the more, but KU's best pitcher is from Topeka. I mean, the list goes on. There's some really good talent here.
There is.
And if more of them were able to stay home, I think that'd be really, really fun. I think my mind went straight to wrestling too, but a secondary answer that a lot of people all said in the chat that I think would just be fun. I don't know if it's logistics. I don't know, but I'm just thinking pure fun. I think hockey would be awesome to have.
Yeah, we're kind of the Arizona State of the Midwest.
Yeah.
That is so bizarre that they have hockey, but it's so cool too.
Or look, I think maybe even lacrosse would be fun. College lacrosse is fun.
Yeah. And honestly, Gills, before you answer, the reason I picked those two sports is they are popular in the state of Kansas. Mm-hmm. There is an already recruiting system in place. And I'm sure a lot of those players would like to stay home. Would an elite pitcher still probably go to a big program? Yeah, but you got to start climbing the ladder. And at least in these two sports, you've got the background to do it. A lot of wrestlers have to leave the state of Kansas if they want to go do major college wrestling, and they end up in Oklahoma or Iowa or somewhere else because there's not an opportunity in the state of Kansas. And boy, wrestling's big in Kansas. And those farm boys get after it. I mean, it's just a sport tailor-made for Kansas State. Gills, what's your thoughts?
I can't. Is NCAA sanctioning underwater basket weaving? I can't believe nobody's mentioned that yet.
No. Here's a little problem with that sport. The baskets get wet, and then it's
aren't they waterproof?
What? That's why it makes it all the more impressive for the people who are good at it.
Yeah.
I mean,
is that your final answer?
That softball and wrestling is the safe answer here, but I wanted to be different from you guys.
Well, you are different. Two thoughts here that I want to circle back to. One, softball works up north because the pitcher's arms aren't as imperiled by pitching in cold weather. I mean, it's a more natural motion. I mean, these pitchers pitch every game, right? Almost every game they roll out the same pitcher. Hey, we got a three-day homestand against West Virginia. I think they play softball. And who are we going to throw? The same person every time. And we're developing some young arms that we might throw out there for, another game or two along the way. But the arms hold up. The sport is much more cold weather able than baseball. It really is. Also, back to Big B's point, I think a better argument why football should be excluded from the Title IX count is this is about athletic opportunities for men and women. Can a woman play college football? Yeah, that we've seen kickers. It is an opportunity. I mean, if you were a female and you want to play football, you go out for the football team. Now, I see the NAI level. I just keep screwing that up. I'm going to stop. That NAIA there offers now women's flag football, which apparently is an absolute blast. Maybe there's some future there, but I see football as a gender-free sport. Everyone can play. And I think trying to make that argument probably runs into some political and social commentary I'm not going to get into on this show. But that's what I think about that. I just love the idea of adding wrestling. And just in a hypothetical world, if you converted the baseball stadium to softball. Yes, I'm not happy with having to play baseball up north. It's just too hard to get a full roster, and we're seeing it again this year. They had a great roster, and they're floundering. And move those fences in and put a wrestling center beyond the left field wall that attaches to the Olympic Sports Center, and there you go.
Hey, I would give it. By the way, I'd give it all of about 2.5 days when the wrestling team got to campus until Taylor Bratt was over there making sure they didn't have anybody that he wanted over on his side in the fall.
Yeah, that's no doubt. I mean, my favorite kind of offensive lineman or defensive lineman were high school wrestlers.
Yep.
They understand balance, how to use their hands, how to get off of opponents, get away from them, and also how to make sudden and quick movement. And it's like the perfect training to be a lineman. And I absolutely love it. Let's see. Most of the ideas were wrestling and softball. I think I saw some other ones. Oh, my nephew Ethan's in here. Okay, there's that.
Yeah, I saw wrestling, softball, and hockey, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting to think about what K-State would be. But until all of these court cases are sorted out, and again, Big B and I did a show with Curry Sexton about House versus NCAA and paying athletes, not through NIL. This isn't about NIL. That would still exist, but actually paying athletes as a institution. It's coming. It's going to be court led. It's going to have huge financial ramifications, and I think it'll end sports. I think the NCAA will have to say, okay, we're lifting the floor on the number of sports you have to offer. Right. You do what you need to do to survive. I think that's the next step. And unfortunately, this lawsuit was led by a young lady with the last name House, who was a swimmer, and she's about to destroy her own sport. The irony of that does not escape me. So that's where we are. If you got any other topics, let's throw them into the chat over there. I'd appreciate it very much. You're watching the K-State Insiders, and we'll be back on the other side to wrap up this show, take your questions, and let Glenn go do his full-time job because he thinks it's more important than us.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I pay him in compliments. He's a
man. You pay me in a new nickname after every commercial break.
Yes, yeah. Absolutely.
Which is more than I could ever need.
I know. We'll be right back.
At Synergy Financial Partners, the vision is to build the world's largest consumer financial education and empowerment company. Synergy doesn't just offer you a financial plan. At Synergy, the goal is to help you find your best financial future. Learn more at synergyfinancial.com.
Welcome back to the show. Let's head back to the studio.
Welcome back to the K-State Insiders, sponsored by Synergy Financial Partners. They also sponsor our Big 12 Insiders that Big B hosts. Big B, do you know what you got cooking for tomorrow? I don't even know.
Tomorrow we got KU, talking a little KU football. Wednesday, we're circling back and doing Texas Tech. Jared had some stuff that was coming up, but we're circling back. And then Thursday and Friday, we're still open. So we'll figure it out from there.
Friday better be an Ask Big B because I love those.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
That. So we need to find someone on Thursday, but Michael Swain will be on tomorrow to discuss stuff going to with KU. And let me just get your guys' thought on this rumor. Big B and I have talked about it a lot from Greg Pfluger, who has a great channel, that KU might be in consideration with if the ACC cracks, you might be able to throw KU into the equation for the SEC. Glenn, you cover both. You have any thoughts on that possibility?
I don't know. I had seen maybe like one tweet about it, and that's about it. So the smart answer for me is probably just that I do not know if there's any validity to that or not. And I can tell you that, they're really powerful, especially if football keeps trending the way that it is. But I don't know if that's going to happen or if that would make sense to happen or whatever.
I think
you guys not hear though that KU is going to the Big Ten is imminent.
Yes, Big Ten, SEC starting their own super conference. I think I surprised KU fans by saying if you do get that offer, you're insane for not going. And I think that's true of everyone in the Big 12. If one of those two conferences offers you, if you really want to play at the highest level, that's the highest level. Now, I think at some point the reality is going to set in that the highest level gives you more money so that you can lose more games. But that's not true for everyone. Someone's got to win. But also a layer to this expansion now is you just don't want high visibility programs. You want to add someone that your current partners are going to beat, that, your current established powers that bring you the TV ratings aren't going to start getting losses by your new additions. So it's kind of a weird web that is weaved by all this. I think there's plenty of options for the SEC that, doesn't have to mean Kansas. It could mean Oklahoma State, could mean West Virginia. But again, that all relies on the ACC, and that's a topic we've talked about a number of times on the Big 12 Insiders. Castillo came back here. I thought this was interesting. One more quickie here. God knows I love quickies. If we ended up getting a softball program started, where would the university put the newly constructed stadium? My mind actually thinks about this stuff. Now, I just was discussing maybe replacing baseball with wrestling. I know a lot of you are having a heart attack that I said it out loud. But if you don't do that and you need to build a stadium, I would guess that one possibility would be to kind of get into the rec fields a little bit, or do what the rec fields would have to do. A lot of that ag land is going to be open to be developed across the street from Kimball. We're seeing the Campus Edge project and buildings going up, more office space. But the ag department is really digging in and consolidating out there. But maybe you can get a softball field caddy corner from the Via Christi area across the street from those apartments. It's currently kind of a floodplain, so you'd have to manipulate that. But softball fields don't take up as much room. That's the good news. But you also, I like to have things that the softball players get to hit the ball into, just not a big open field. I want trees. I want it to clank off a building.
Yeah.
Ryan Gilbert out there not paying attention. Just clank that ball off of something and make it fun. That she just parked it in the sunflower patch. I don't know.
You could put like a hotel behind it or something. That'd be kind of cool. So then you could stay at the hotel and watch the game out the window, and maybe have a ball fly into your living room.
Yeah. They're just like, oh, she hit it onto the third floor deck.
Yeah, the balcony. Yeah.
Welcome, Griswold family, to the Manhattan Hilton.
Yeah.
Anything else, guys? Anything else over here? No. Cornelia always comes up. I do agree with this. Cornelia, what would we do without you today? Pfluger started a firestorm. Oh my God. And you know what? He just kind of threw it in there. But he said, don't be surprised if. Okay, we won't be surprised now because you brought it up.
Yeah.
So that kind of was a self-fulfilling prophecy. Glenn, you got to go. We don't have anything else to talk about right now. I don't see any questions in there that have to be attended to. So we're going to call it good on this edition of the K-State Insiders. Hey, Big B, why did I name two shows almost identical things? So every time I try to say K-State, I start to say Big 12.
I think it works, though.
I know.
No problem. I like it.
The problem is I'm not very bright. That's it. We'll talk to you next week. We'll see you on Tuesday if you want to show up and watch a KU show. Michael Swain's damn good, though. He will be very informative.
This has been a GoPowercat.com and Spirit Street production. Please support this show by subscribing to this YouTube channel or follow us on your favorite podcast platform.